All right. Let me hit the go button.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to the EDS Empower Hour. My name is Christy Cox, and I am an EDS patient, an advocate, and an author. And I'm thrilled to have as my guest today a powerhouse in the world of pain relief, Ellen Lennox Smith, who she's going to tell us her story. She's a board member from the U.S. Pain Foundation and a real advocate for people with chronic pain, specifically in her area of expertise, which is cannabis for chronic pain. So we're going to kind of do a dual show this morning. We're going to have Ellen present on, her lifelong secrets and recipes on how to do this and tips and things to know. And then I'm going to switch over into my more recent kind of experimentation and recipes of how I'm making things with cannabis help my pain. And hopefully in all that, there's some different things or recipes that you can learn and help deal with your own pain in a potentially new way or get a new recipe. So thanks for being here. Welcome, Ellen. You have anything you want to say before I start the slides?
Me?
Yeah.
Actually, I'll say it through the slides, if that's all right. If we can bring the slides up, and then I'll be able to kind of introduce how I got involved with all this and why I'm here. How's that?
All right, sounds
Are you able
good.
to bring them up?
Let me hit the share button. Can you see those?
Almost there. Can you slide it over a little bit more?
Yeah, let me make it the more full screen or whatever. How's
There
that?
we go. Yeah. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. There we go. I can't quite see the whole thing. Can you possibly get my words back in there?
Um, Meaning it's too large or it's too
It's too
small?
large. I can't, my words are missing on my screen on the left. There we go.
Okay.
Maybe we should just leave it that way then. Um,
How's that?
yeah, let's do that. So
Okay.
I working for the U.S. Pain Foundation. My name's Ellen Lennox Smith, and I'm here in Rhode Island. And as you can see, an older lady. I'm turning 76 next year and been at this for a while.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we're getting there. It's important that I explain I have no financial ties to any organization. My advocacy is all volunteer and always has been. And this information is from a medical professional, is not medical professional, and should only be taken as advice from me, but not something that is coming through a medical format. And I'll be sharing my personal story with you and what has worked for me. It's always been important to me, kind of lost in the system when I first got diagnosed at 54. I had really few people to turn to for help. So this was kind of a self-learned situation. Let's go to the next slide.
Right.
Okay, my background, simply mother of four sons, grandmother. As you can see on the picture on the right, that's my first service dog and I. We were fighting for the rights of cannabis in Rhode Island. We were very fortunate and had it become legalized in 2006. I was a former gardener, master swimmer, high school swim coach. I was diagnosed at 54 in 2004 with Ehlers-Danlos. By 2005, they also diagnosed sarcoidosis in my chest. Um, so medical cannabis patient since 2007 and advocating in support of this. I know so many people that were afraid, like me, to use cannabis, but I really didn't have a choice if I wanted to stay alive. If we go to the next slide, I'll explain why. Um, so this is why I turned to cannabis. I am highly drug reactive, and most of us living with Ehlers-Danlos have that same problem. So one thing I would highly encourage you to talk to your doctor about getting is a DNA drug sensitivity testing. Simple swab of the inside of the mouth. It goes off to the lab. It gives you a map of what's safe and not safe for the remainder of your entire life. You never have to get that test done again. At this point, when I turned to cannabis, I was not sleeping. I was still trying to teach. And it was a pain doctor that suggested I try cannabis. And I literally laughed his face, said, "Oh, why would I want to walk around high all day long thinking, what kind of life is that going to be?" But here I was trying to teach, took nothing anymore because everything I was taking, I was reacting. So I was better off just living with pain than living with pain and a reaction. Next slide.
So true, right?
Yep. So as I said, I was scared to try it. College, I tried it. I didn't like the feeling of being out of control of my body. I had a couple of hits on a joint for the first time in my life in college. I hated it and spent the rest of the day lying in bed. I thought, why would I want that life? Next slide. So what happened? It totally reacted differently than back in college. So why is that? Next slide. A body in pain gets pain relief and calm from cannabis, not the high, unless you make the mistake of taking too much. And as we go through this information for both Christy and I are going to offer you, remember, you have to start slowly with cannabis. You don't just jump into a high dose because you're in so much pain. You have to introduce this to your body. If you do not do that, I've had so many people that don't listen, take a high dose because they're so upset about their pain, and then call me up and said, oh, I hated it. I was high as a kite. I said, what'd you take? And then they explain. I said, but you were supposed to start slow. So it's really important to read the directions that we're going to share with you if you're going to try this, and slowly, gently enter this into your body. Next slide. Cannabis was used for medicinal purposes prior to, it says humans have cultivated and consumed the flower tops of the female cannabis plants since virtually the beginning of recorded history. Cannabis-based textiles dating to 7000 BC have been recovered in northern China, and the plant's use of the medicinal and euphoric agent date back nearly as far. In 2008, archaeologists in Central Asia discovered over 2 pounds of cannabis in a 2,700-year-old grave in an ancient mummified Shannon. Okay, next slide.
Oh, come on. There we go.
There we go. So because I was also diagnosed with sarcoidosis, I was immediately told by my pulmonologist, no smoking, no vaporizing. I had to find another way to take this on. Remember now, this is back in 2007 with very little information out there. So through help of one of my son's friends, I have 4 sons, and he was so embarrassed for me to ever talk about this initially. I learned how to convert it into an oil form. So that is the process I'm going to share with you initially. Okay, next slide.
Oh, come on.
Now, what was the result? I made this oil. I was scared to death. I told my husband, I've just taken it thinking I'm going to be whacked out for the rest of the day and the night, and I'm going to be a mess. I took it about an hour before bedtime. The next thing I know, it's morning. I've literally slept the night. I had calmed my body. It helped to create quality of life I had not known for ages. It helped to lessen the brain fog. And I have found as time has moved on, I rarely ever take any medication for pain during the day. This, the way I take it, I ingest it down. And when you swallow something down like that, it doesn't instantly give you relief. And that's where people get in trouble. They think, oh, I'm not feeling anything, so they take more. You have to let that get into your system. It takes about, it depends on your body, 45 minutes to an hour before that activates. And then it's calm. And what I like about this is I'm asleep when it's activating. It's calming my body so I can go to sleep. And it doesn't matter what we have wrong with ourselves. If we do not get quality sleep at night, then good luck with the next day, especially living with Ehlers-Danlos, when we never know what's going to be next. Next slide. Can you slide that over just a little bit the other way?
That way?
Okay. So the process of how to convert your dry product into oil is very simple. And I've included a link that you're all more than welcome to take on. And if you could pull this up just a little bit, Christy. A little higher.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, can you pull the whole thing up higher? There we go. What I'd like you to do is, if you're interested in what I'm sharing with you, then feel free to read the directions. It very carefully tells you how much product you'd need, what type of product you're going to look for, grinding it up, mixing it with oil. You'll notice on the right hand, just one second, thumb it down. My service dog just walked in. Lie down. Other way. Here you go. You'll see on the right what's called a magical butter machine. For years, I made the oil on the top of my stove. And now I put it into that machine. I measure out the ground up product to the quantity of oil, and it's magical. It just literally makes it right in that machine, strain it out, and I'm good to go. And the oil's incredible. So I'm including here my email address for you. So if you have questions and when you try this, please feel free to email. I'm very good about responding back, and I'd be happy to help you out. So basically, to create an oil that's nighttime, you're going to be grinding up the product. And for me, if you can go to the next slide, please. You're going to take the bud of the plant, and you can also take the clippings. If you look at the bottom picture on the right, you'll see a container with the bud, and next to it is another container. Those are the clippings, the little tiny leaves that grow around the bud. I also trim those. Those are loaded with the THC and CBD2. So don't throw those clippings away. Those are extremely beneficial, and you'll be able to use that. I put those into whatever machine you have at home that could grind things up. You grind that up to a thinner measurement, and then you're able to take a tablespoon to measure out the quantity of product ground up to the quantity of oil. And all the specific directions are in that link that Christy just highlighted for you. Did you put that in the chat? So,
Yeah, put it in the
oh,
chat.
thank you. Great. Okay. So next slide. The benefits of taking a cannabis in nighttime in an oil. It's safer for your lungs not to be smoking the medicine if you had a choice. I never smell of cannabis because I'm taking my oil at night. It's easier to store and travel with. It activates while I'm sleeping. And for many that achieve their true dose, it can mean less need for medication during the day, for it keeps the body calm into the next day. Couple of things. The oil is easily stored. You don't want it sitting in a bottle in the sun. So I would put it in a place where it's out of the sun. You do not need to refrigerate it. You're going to be draining out all the product itself and just having through a strainer, just collect the oil that's going to come through after the machine is done with creating the oil for you. Make sure you drain that out. And I don't want you to be scared of how much it's going to take to overcome your pain. When I first started this journey, way before I've now had, not to scare you, but I'm older and people didn't exactly know what was going on for a while. So I've now had 29 surgeries. And initially, I was up to 4 teaspoons of this oil at nighttime. And this oil you want to mix with something at night. You don't just take a plain dose of oil. You mix it with like applesauce, yogurt, whatever you're able to metabolize. I even buy those little baby pouches of something I can metabolize and mix a little bit in a little cup. Make sure you mix it with something and then swallow that down. But at that point, when I had not really corrected some massive problems with my body, I was on 4 teaspoons of oil to get to sleep. Today, at almost 76, I'm now at a half a teaspoon, and that's all my body needs. So don't get
Wow.
scared, those people that are going to tell you, oh, you're going to get addicted, you're going to keep needing more and more. It's not true. You will be the judge. If you decide to try this way, you will decide what is the right dose for you. And the right dose, because you're going to slowly, and you'll see it in the directions that you'll open up, you start at a 1/4 teaspoon mixed with something before you go to bed, generally 45 minutes to an hour before bed, and then it will kick in. And it's, you slowly increase that. And the goal for all of us would be to wake up in the morning, I've had a decent night of sleep, and I'm not groggy. If you wake up and you're groggy, then your dose is too high. Don't repeat that dose, back it down. And that's when you're going to know to stop. So if you've gone through the night, stay at that dose. If you go through the night, but you're also groggy, decrease it down so you shouldn't have to wake up to that groggy feeling if you get your dose right. So you're going to be in charge of this, which is really, to be honest with you, kind of fun. I'm so tired of reactions to medications. It's something I can do to help myself, and it does work. Next slide. There are many, and Christy's going to show you other ways to do this. There are tinctures, and my directions include 2 types of tinctures. There's patches, topicals, edibles, vaporizing, smoking, candies, sprays, oils, you name it. They've come up with, and now these drinks too. I mean, they've come up with all different ways of being this. Just be careful. If you're going to swallow cannabis down, remember it doesn't activate instantly. Do not. I had a friend that had a bite of a cannabis cookie. She felt nothing. She was really, really hungry. So because she forgot, wasn't feeling anything, ate the whole darn cookie, and then she was a mess. So if you're going to eat something, make sure you know what quantity to start with and don't overdo it. Next slide. So the question you have to ask yourself, well, how do I know what I'm supposed to get to create this oil? So the important thing is we do not all react the same with each type of plant, despite even having the same condition of Ehlers-Danlos. So you must be patient to find that correct match. Dispensaries should be very helpful in what might be best to try and how to use it, but be careful. There are two types of cannabis, and I'm going to go into the next slide and show you what I mean. One is called indica. These plants provide night relief, higher CBD, and lower THC counts. The other type of plant they're going to try to also sell you is called a sativa. That is used for daytime relief. It tends to be higher THC and lower CBD. So you have to be very careful and have this knowledge when you walk in. To make a night oil, you would never use sativa. You can make a day oil with sativa if you want to try that, but night oil, you want indica plants. My husband, who deals with Parkinson's, uses higher THC plants. For me, I use the higher CBD plants. It's just a matter of what might be best. The other option you do is buy a few different types of plants together and mix those. And a lot of my oils is actually mixtures of a couple of plants because each plant has something else to offer to you. So it can't hurt you. Okay, next slide.
One thing I want to add
Yeah,
here that's been helpful in me remembering the indica versus sativa, because you get in there and you get overwhelmed by the product, is, like the kids say, indica is like Inda couch. That's the one. That's how I remember that it's the one that's relaxing.
that's funny. That's a good one. Can you possibly pull this over a little bit, Christy? I can't see to the right. There we go. Okay. Can you pull a little bit more? Okay, perfect. Okay, so strains. There are so many different types of plants out there. Remember, each body reacts differently to these strains. Rule of thumb, don't give up and just go try another strain if you didn't have success with the first one. It doesn't mean you're not going to find your match. I would highly encourage you keep a record of what you've tried, what name and type works or does not work. So the next time you go back to get more, you know what you're looking for or the type of plant. Next slide. The difference as they appear. Indica, these are night strains. They generally grow more compact type of plant, broad leaves, and often even darker leaves. Next slide. Indica strains, higher CBD, lower THC counts. They increase mental and muscle relaxation, decreases nausea and acute pain, and increases the appetite and dopamine preferred for nighttime use only. Next. Sativa, these are daytime strains, generally will grow taller and more slender leaves. They are lower CBD, higher THC count. Qualities, anti-anxiety also can be helped, antidepressant, helps to treat chronic pain, and increases focus and serotonin, preferred for daytime. So an oil made, you can make an oil for daytime with sativa. That will give you pain relief. And I'm going to use the word stimulant to be awake. Whereas you use an indica plant, that's going to give you pain relief and more of a sedative sensation to want to go to sleep. So it's very, very important you write indica, sativa down and keep that little notebook when you first start this process so you make sure you're on the right track. Next slide. You do not want to take, remember, as I said, a daytime sativa strain at the night or you will not be able to sleep. And you don't want to take a night indica during the daytime or you will be tired and sleepy. So make sure you get this correct. Daytime, nighttime, sativa, indica. Next slide.
Yeah, if you're like me, you'll figure this out the hard way and be laying
Yeah,
there at night going, meh.
we've all been there.
Yep.
Okay, what about just using CBD? CBD comes from the hemp plant. It can be ordered online legally. It must have less than 0.3% THC in it. And people get confused and don't realize that a hemp plant does have THC in it. It's just under 0.3%. CBD from the cannabis plant will have to be 0.3 and above THC. And for that case, you would need a medical card to buy it at a dispensary or, depending where you live, to be able to home grow. CBD is generally used for pain and inflammation. It can be fantastic, but it can show up in a urine test that you're using a CBD product, believe it or not, because it does actually have THC. Next slide. Safe places you can purchase hemp. Presently, it's unfortunate there are still no regulations for a hemp production. It can be expensive, so you want to be sure what you're getting, what's advertised with the ingredients listed. These happen to be some companies that are safe. There are some wonderful products, many more out there, but the bottom line is there's no rules and regulations. Here in Rhode Island, you can go to a gas station and buy a hemp product, and who knows what's in it because no one is checking it. Next slide.
Exactly.
So is my CBD product from hemp safe? Presently, with no regulations for the sale of CBD from hemp, it's very important you listen to this. Request to see the certificate of analysis or code for their web to see what is the number of compounds in that product. Solvents, contaminants included, percent of THC included. If they do not have that available, I would not buy their product. Go with the ones that are trying to do it correctly, because there's wonderful products out there that can give you incredible relief. So just remember to check and check out the company and make sure they really are on track. Next slide. Do not be afraid of using cannabis plant that has a higher amount of THC in it. You may need that THC for pain relief. As I said, I've been doing this since I was since 2007, and now almost 76. I've decreased the amount I've needed, but this is what, with Ehlers-Danlos and being so drug reactive, my DNA testing that I had done showed I can't do anything over the counter. Aspirin, Tylenol, ibuprofen, any of those products. I can't do any of the opiates. I cannot metabolize. The only two things my body came back showing it could metabolize was cannabis and ketamine. Leave it to my body to take the two controversial items, but that's what I have to deal with. Next slide. Are you worried about using the THC but need help for pain? Consider asking for strains that have a higher CBD to start out with this process. If you're going to try ingesting and swallowing it down for a nighttime help, try the higher CBD initially. If eventually that type of plant's not working, then go for a plant that has higher THC. A really extremely safe plant for sativa is ACDC. It's used for children with seizures. It has just about little of any THC in it. Indica examples, and there's so many, but this is just what I've used in the past: strawberry diesel, catatonic, critical cure, propyl god. There are so many strains, and so many people have combined strains to create a new name. So basically, you're going to go in there asking, I want something with higher CBD that's an indica plant, or I want something that's higher THC that's an indica plant if you're going for nighttime oil. Next slide. Ask questions. Speak to a specialist, medical cannabis expert, someone from the dispensary, cannabis-focused nonprofit, etc. Benefits: provide dosage advice, ingestion methods, and product type. Find a reputable dispensary if you're not able to home grow. I believe in Texas you cannot grow. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So what are their testing procedures? Don't take it for granted. I mean, if they're not checking a dispensary out, I don't know how it is in Texas. You want to make sure they're doing testing on the products that they're selling to you. What types of products are they carrying? And are there patient service, care services or educational classes you could possibly even become part of? Okay, next slide. Interactions. Hemp CBD plants. Pure CBD from the hemp can change how one metabolizes other medications, especially with blood thinners. So it's very, very important. You speak to your doctor if you're on a blood thinner and you're also taking a CBD product. And this is really amazing, but cannabis products seems to produce fewer drug reactions, which is really kind of neat. So for both, be sure that your doctor knows that you're trying them, but there tends to be less reaction with the cannabis higher THC plant. Next slide. So can I reduce other medications I'm on? I know many of us, as we finally go to turn to cannabis, have taken so many other things trying to figure out how to get on top of our pain. Many are able to eliminate other medications such as opiates, gabapentin, etc. As you achieve your proper dose with cannabis, you consider slowly reducing other medications if you want to try. Remember, you only reduce one thing at a time, and be sure it feels effective to remove that and make sure your doctor knows you're doing this. And don't compare yourself to others, even with our same condition. We all require different amounts and different strains for success. But remember, one thing at a time. It's the same thing if you happen to use the Cusack protocol. You don't suddenly take the entire protocol, you take one vitamin at a time, get 4 or 5 days, see how your body's doing before you then add. Next slide. Remember, and I know people scare people around about cannabis, but nobody is known to ever die using cannabis. Can you take too much and get high? Absolutely. So that's why we start slow. There are very few side effects, few drug interactions. So go slowly, introducing it to your body, and try not to use more than you need. Next. It's really important with Ehlers-Danlos that you address inflammation. Cannabis will definitely help that. But the other things you can do right now to help yourself is get that drug sensitivity testing done. It's called DNA drug sensitivity testing. You will have that map of your body's results for the remainder of your life. You never have to do the test again. And anytime there's a question about putting me on medications, I call my doctor. The pharmacist for my doctor checks my DNA testing, is able to email me back and say, yes, this product is safe, or no, take this one instead. So I never have to go through drug reactions ever again, and I'm thrilled. The other thing you can do to help yourself, and remember, if you're reacting to medication, that's going to cause inflammation in your body. We don't want inflammation with Ehlers-Danlos. Inflammation causes our subluxations and dislocations to happen more rapidly. Same thing with food. We are food reactive. It's a pain in the neck. Wonderful, good foods. We suddenly find out most of us have problems with dairy, soy, and nightshade vegetables. Wonderful things that I was growing right in my garden. I couldn't figure out why I was still subluxing. It was tomatoes, peppers, white potatoes, and eggplant. Those are your nightshade vegetables. Most of us have a problem with those. So how you can figure this out is called a food sensitivity testing. Those are two types, MRT and ALCAT. It's a simple blood test, and it will give you a result. The only problem with food sensitivities, that's not for the rest of your life. That lasts like 3 to 6 months, and it can change again. So if you find that you've paid attention to the results of this, you're very careful about what you're eating, and then you're getting inflamed all over again, that probably means you've started to react to something that was an okay thing to eat before that maybe now you need to change. There are cases where you have a food that you are being more careful of not eating as frequently, and in time you might actually be able to totally digest it again. So it's very helpful to help you to help yourself control inflammation. Next slide.
Quick question. Where are
Yeah.
you getting these, like the drug sensitivity tests? I know you can get, like, your site can order, and then is the food sensitivity testing, is that something consumers can just get online?
Right. The drug sensitivity I got through my doctor, who ordered
Hmm.
the type they wanted at the time. At that time, I had Genelix. I don't even know if they still do the testing or not. They were wonderful to me. A food sensitivity I had done through a, oh God, I can't think of the word I want.
It's okay.
Wait a minute. Somebody who deals with food and reactions. What am I trying to say? Nutritionist? A
Nutritionist.
nutritionist,
Yeah.
yeah, duh. Welcome to
Okay.
Ehlers-Danlos. Huh? There's the
Yeah.
brain.
Sorry, I don't mean to
Yeah.
throw you off in your midstream. I just
Oh,
knew
I'm
people would
sorry.
probably have
I
that.
can't believe I can't
People,
think of a nutritionist. But actually, a doctor could probably order the food sensitivity too, and it's really, really worth it. So many of you are going to, if you listen to this, you're going to educate your doctors on how to help us with Ehlers-Danlos. All of us need to pay it forward and educate our doctors and educate other people we meet dealing with this and what we can do to have some help for ourselves. Next slide. So if you're considering becoming a patient in Texas, like here in Rhode Island, you need to look up your state, find out what the rules and regulations are. Christy told me you recently have added chronic pain, which is the best thing in the world. I'm so happy for you guys because that gets Ehlers-Danlos right in. And that's just an example of the medical card I have here in Rhode Island from a while ago. Next slide. You need to find out if you're qualified. The fact that it says chronic pain, you should be totally qualified. Generally, you then need your doctor to sign a form, and then you submit all the forms. For here in Rhode Island, it's through the Department of Health. You must have a certain condition, obviously, to qualify. And Ehlers-Danlos with chronic pain, you're good. You're going to be good to go. Next slide. To contact your Department of Health, you want to fill out the form, normally available online to download. States differ in their application process, but you typically are required to have a doctor's note or a doctor's signature for confirming that you have the listed conditions before you apply. And then approach a trusted doctor about signing the form confirming you have that condition. Hopefully you have somebody in your medical team that will listen to you, know you've been suffering with pain, and that this could be a very great way to help yourself. Many of us have problems with other medications for pain relief, and this tends to be the help is for many of us is turning to cannabis. Next slide. So again, feel free. Those are both my email addresses, the Pain Foundation and also my personal one. Feel free to reach out. I have absolutely no problem with that. And last slide there is just thank you for listening. That's my husband up on the right and on the left, and that's my new service dog. She came from Needs, Neads. She's able to pick things up off the ground. She can open doors. Like Christy, you were saying, she's very aware of when I'm having medical issues and can actually come and alert me before I'm even realizing something's about to happen. The last slide, and I'm assuming these slides will be available. Is that correct, Kirsty?
yes.
Yeah, various places you can turn to get more education. So I just wanted to include these links in for you too. And hopefully that will help. How did I do okay on time? We good,
Yeah,
Kirsty?
you did great.
Okay. So
All
if
right.
anybody has a question before we move on, or do you want to just move on and then do
I would
questions?
say let's move on and then we'll do like questions at
Okay,
the end.
sounds good.
Okay, so
Now you're
I'm
going to
gonna,
educate me, girl.
yeah, here we go.
Okay.
So can you still see the screen
I would pull it up. Keep going.
better?
Keep going. A little higher.
Oop, how's that?
No, the words are still
I
below,
was say
down too low.
oh, sorry.
There you go. Now you got it.
All right. So being my, I like to be sassy with my science. I've got my, butter me up zebra because cannabis for chronic pain and the way that I've found that it works as a new person, like literally experimenting with this was, how can I just get a good night's sleep, right? I mean, it's such a precious thing for us all. So, if you're an adult with chronic pain or a connective tissue disorder, or you're curious about, how to get pain or sleep support, obviously this is not for minors, and this is educational and not medical advice, none of this. But, some of us that have connective tissue disorders like EDS, our muscles are screaming in the middle of the night. And, something that I've been dealing with a lot lately is I can't get my POTS and dysautonomia to like calm down, that autonomic nervous system, in addition to like the ADHD neurodivergent. It's just like sleep seems sometimes like a myth, just a myth. So this has been one of the ways that I've been able to achieve sleep with medical cannabis. So, the other factor for me is, like many of us, we're on disability, which is a really low fixed income. And if you're experimenting with like buying things online or doing, sleep gummies and those sorts of things, you're paying a lot of money for a package of like, 10 gummies and, then 2 weeks later it's gone. And the thing that you may have noticed is the gummies, are probably poured in like a vat. And this gummy that you took today has a different dose than the one you took the next day. And so not only for budget reasons, I found that making homemade butter gave me a lot more control, because I know that it's been kind of evenly distributed and it costs just a fraction. So if you're going to make canna butter, here's some of the supplies you'll need. Obviously you need kind of the plant material, the cannabis flower, and depending on what state you're in and where you're in, and if you have the medical card, you can go to the legal dispensary. Um, some people don't have those options, and Ellen covered a lot of that, and of course the CBD and THC blends, that's really really important to know, and of course that lab report, the COA, on how it's made and the strength. They'll typically give you like a percentage, like this strain is like 20% strength or 25%, and that's really important to know. And later on I'll share an article that helps you figure out kind of the dosing. Um, the kitchen tools that you'll need, if you follow some of the recipes in Ellen's document in the chat, she can teach you how to do it with like the pots and pans and things that you have at home, and like a strainer or cheesecloth, some sort of glass storage container, and some sort of digital thermometer. Or you can go the way that Ellen and I have been talking about it and invest in what's called a magic butter machine. And it kind of, you end up sort of dumping the ingredients in there and hitting the on button, and a couple hours later it's done. I'll go through that in a moment. But, I mean, whether you kind of go the budget way or like the fancy way, there are other machines out there, and they all kind of have a certain amount of, energy or level of work required. And then, of course, the ingredients of what you're going to make the butter with. And I'm going to share a recipe that'll be in a slide here in a moment that you can screenshot. But, you're going to get like unsalted butter, and, picking a good quality matters. If you need to be dairy free, you can use like coconut oil or ghee. Ellen is using like olive oil, and, you're going to sort of figure out how much you want to make, and that'll determine the exact recipe, but we'll go through that. Now, the next step in the process, when I was doing my research to try to figure out how to do this, getting kind of desperate and trying to solve pain and get some good sleep, was, I was looking online, and all the advice about, making canna butter talked about this process of decarboxylation, decarbing for short. And Ellen and I have had a conversation about this, and basically it's taking the flower buds, and you're heating it in the oven at about 250 degrees, like just on a baking sheet for somewhere between like 30 and 45 minutes. And what I read was that, if you didn't decarb, then the chemistry of what needed to happen to activate the endocannabinoids in the flower was not as effective. And so as I was doing this, I'm baking the flower buds in my process before I put it in the magic butter machine. And that makes my house really reek of, for days and days. But Ellen had shared with me that she did not feel like that was something that made a difference for her. So again, this is really, you're going to be sort of cooking and figuring this out on your own. So, the process, if you use kind of the home, no special equipment, you're basically like melting your butter like in a slow cooker or on real slow and low in a saucepan. Um, I recommend that you add some water to prevent the butter from scorching. And then I'll go through it in my recipe, but in my research, there were people suggesting that you add something called lectin powder, and it varies on the recipe of how much you add. And you're kind of putting all of that into the pot with that flour. Um, and I personally don't know whether the flour needs to be like broken up and ground or if it's okay to kind of be in smaller buds. But you're gonna, keep it on slow and low. You're never gonna boil. And you're gonna want to maintain this kind of 160 to 180 degree um, slow cooking, kind of long and strong. Um, and stirring occasionally. And then the important part at the end is you strain it like through some sort of filter, strainer, cheesecloth, um, into like a mason jar, a glass jar. And you kind of want to squeeze every sort of drop out of it. And then you can refrigerate or freeze. And you discard, the water part and the flour part. And you can keep it for up to 2 weeks in the fridge or freeze it for up to 6 months. Now, the way that I've found is easiest for me is using the magic butter machine. And, that's an investment of, gosh, I can't think of, I want to say it was about $300, but I mean, it's a one-time thing. And if this is something that works for you, but you get the magic butter machine, and then in my kind of recipe, you take 4 sticks of unsalted butter that are softened, and you put that 1 tablespoon of that lectin powder that you can get on Amazon. And then I didn't know better, but I've been decarbing and making my house smell terrible with the bud flower. And, I've been using about 3.5 to 7 grams of the bud flower, which for me, I am not in a state where I can grow it. So I'm having to like buy this at a dispensary or at an online store. And those were the amounts that like were most commonly sold to me. And so the 3.5 obviously is the smaller, 7 is double that, and anything above that, you're just compounding the amount, um, that is the strength. So again, the you're getting everything prepped, you're decarbing the flour, and if you buy the magic butter machine, it comes with this little silicone box and the digital thermometer, and so you're putting in the oven, and it tells you, okay, if we've achieved 250, cook it for 30 minutes. Um, and then you put it all into the magic butter machine, and they have a button that's like, do butter, and it's usually about 2 hours, and the machine goes through and does the infusion process. And Ellen's put into the chat that she's finding the magic butter machine around $200. So it's so much simpler. And then the alarm goes off and tells you it's done. And the package, because I have several different packages of the Magic Butter Machine, the one I got was called the Magic Filter Press Bundle, and it came with the little filter thing, so I didn't have to use a cheesecloth, and it was $3.29. And you could also make butter, but you could also make gummies, and they'll sell you the I guess it's like a gelatin that has like a fruit flavor or something, so you could make gummies, which is a totally different process I haven't tried. Um, but then after you strain it, you put it into your mason jar. And for me, that 4 sticks of butter turns out to be like 1 mason jar. And you strain the material out. And what I've done is, like I take a small part of that and leave it in the refrigerator, and then I freeze the rest. And be sure that you write on there in like a Sharpie, like what type of strain it was that you used. I've learned that um, information about the percentage of potency in the strain, like the 20%, that's the strength. And so I'll put that and the date. And then a really important thing down here, and I can put it in the chat, is this calculator of the dosing. And so this came into me because when I first started doing this, oh, that's the wrong link. Bear with me. When I first started doing this, I was like, okay, I made the butter. Now what do I do with it? Do I like put it in a brownie? Do I, like cook with it? Do I eat it? I didn't know what to do with it. And I just sort of started trying it out, and I went to this calculator, and it was like, okay, so if I take a half teaspoon of this amount of butter, and it helps you with the math of, okay, the strength of the strain was X amount. And so it helped me understand that I was taking, like 2 milligrams worth of THC or 5 or 10 or whatever it was. And I found this out like everyone does the hard way of accidentally taking like 25 milligrams when I've learned that I really like to kind of microdose. I feel better when I'm doing like 2 or 3 or 5 as opposed to the higher doses. So that link is really important, in my opinion, to doing the math. Mistakes everybody makes, like they say online that skipping the decarb is an important process. You know, I think that's up for debate. You definitely don't want to turn your heat up too high because the boiling can actually destroy the cannabinoids. Not straining it very well. You don't want that harsh or, kind of clumps of things in your butter. And then as Ellen warned, you definitively do not want to take too much. And as she recommends, you need to wait at least an hour for it to even start and 2 full hours until you decide that you might need more. And I think that's the mistake like everyone makes is you go, nothing's working. I'm going to do more. I'm going to do more. And, you know, edibles in particular take time to process through your body. Um, Again, I highly recommend that you track and write down all these things because you want to be able to know like this batch was the like purple milk and that one was the whatever that might be the daytime use. All right, so here's my information on, adjusting for your needs. Go gentle, fewer grams of bud flower per cup of butter. The stronger your infusion is, the more plant material it is. And as Ellen said, the indica leaning strains tend to help you relax, good for nighttime, good for pain relief, and just like autonomic calm. And be careful of the hemp-based Delta 8 or Delta 9 products because most of those, and they don't disclose this, are coming from sativa strains, which for me cause a lot of anxiety. So I'm getting the counter benefit of what I'm trying to do. Again, start low and test when you're like on a day off and like whatever reaction you have the first couple of times. Like if you fall asleep, it's okay. Or if you get anxious and you're up all night, make sure that it's okay. Um, but the CBD and THC hybrids, typically the one-to-ones, um, can kind of buffer the intensity of both. And from what I've heard from a lot of people that I know that have mast cell issues, that hybrid is really effective for both the calm and kind of just the gentle, like giving you some energy. So you got to kind of play around with what works for you. And, the rule needs to be start low and go slow and see what it does for your muscle tension or for your mood and your cognitive, or if you have any like reactions from mast cell. All right, so here's the screenshot of the kind of do at home, no special equipment cannabis butter recipe. So feel free to screenshot that and we will share the slides. And then here's my recipe that I'm, living and learning with the magic butter machine.
Michael Levine.
Oop, Ellen, put yourself on mute. I'm going to put you on mute. All right. So storage shelf life, refrigerator up to 2 weeks in a sealed glass, in the freezer up to 6 months. Again, always label it, keep it away from your pets, and don't have it stored anywhere that it might get hot because it degrades the potency. So, and this is when I say this, I mean both the flour and like once you've made the butter. You don't want to like set it on the counter near the stove because the heat will degrade it. So think like dark, cool, and sealed. And any signs that it might be spoiling, if it starts smelling like really funky, gets any mold or gets like an unexpected color, kind of when in doubt, throw it out. And the part that I think, Ellen has talked about that's so important is, I never used to feel guilty about like having a glass of wine or two at night or but I had a real kind of social hang up about, doing cannabis and I felt, like did I need to hide this? Did I not tell my family about it? But if something actually helps me with my pain and my sleep, why am I allowing that to make me feel like a failure, like I crossed some sort of a line? And so, I encourage you to come to, this part of like acceptance that you're not giving up and you're not numbing out and you're not getting high and sitting around, eating Fruit Loops. This is choosing relief, with no shame in a body that can hurt every single day. And so let this, from information from Ellen and I, be like your permission slip. For resources and where to learn more, of course, your state and your licensed dispensary, you can go to those resources that Ellen suggested or just Google like how to get a medical cannabis card in your state. It's like such an industry. I mean, a lot of times now it's like click on the link, make an appointment, you pay a fee, they do a call with the doctor, you provide your medical evidence that you have whatever the condition that's a qualifying condition. And then, 45 minutes later, you have a document in your email that says you have a medical cannabis card that allows you to go to the dispensary. It's fairly simple and fairly affordable in most places. So for around $100 or maybe $200, you can go through the whole process and have this be an option for you. Um, Always ask the, bud tender at the store about those COAs, those lab reports, about the testing and the strength and where it comes from. If you want online information about strain and their effects, and like say you looked into like the purple cow or whatever, leafly.com is a great source. Weed Maps is a place that can help you find a local dispensary, or projectcbd.org is a great site for a lot of information on CBD. The equipment we've talked about. The other thing I wanted to bring to mind, and I'll put this in the chat, is there's an online store because I don't have the option like Ellen does to be able to grow this at home. And so I've found a store that's called the Clean Green Store, and I was able to get like a referral link. I don't make it, there's, disclosure, no money. This is just you get a $25 off coupon if you go there. But there's no synthetics, there's no Delta 9. It's actually like plant. So that's a place that you could buy bud. And I've bought a few different strains and experimented, and one made me too anxious, and one made me, not calm enough. And I'm just doing it in low doses and figuring it out. And then for education on the general process, the Cannabis Nurses Network is fantastic. Ellen has led the charge at the U.S. Pain Foundation of a ton of great cannabis resources. There's ebooks and all kinds of information. In fact, one of the best presentations that I've ever seen on this topic, they had a guest speaker from Leaf 411, that nonprofit, and they went through so many great details. So go to the U.S. Pain Foundation and find, or their YouTube channel and find their Leaf 411. It's a fantastic presentation. And if you go to Leaf 411, they have individuals that you can schedule a call with and go through your specific needs, and they'll guide you to like what to do in your state, how to get a license, what strains to try, where to shop, the entire process. And I believe it's a small fee or it might be free for people on disability, but it's fantastic. And then if you need to know like what's going on in your state and track legislation, like I moved to Texas and lost my Virginia medical cannabis card when we came here and relocated, and I had to start over, and chronic pain was not a condition that was covered, so I like lost my ability to easily access cannabis. So I started advocating and I started understanding what was going on in my state. And so if you want to follow that, you can go to marijuanamoment.net, and under the the backslash bills, you can help figure that out. And then the other, I'm going to put this Pain Foundation link, if I can get it copied, into the chat, which is a ton of great information. Thank you, Ellen, for all the hard work there to make sure that was great. But, I feel like chronic illness already asks us to battle a whole bunch of things. And if, a couple of sticks of butter and a plant older than modern medicine itself can help you sleep, maybe it's the bravest thing you can do to let yourself have the permission slip to do this. So I'm going to stop the share and come back and see if anyone has any questions for me or for Ellen. If not, we can wrap this up and share the slides and the links.
Can I just say something, Christy? You did a
Sure.
really good job. I just want to encourage when you had a little post there about keeping this away from animals. I had a horrible experience with service dog, my first one. It was a cold day. I was dripping the oil through a filter in the back porch with the door shut. Out of the blue, somebody came to visit that we hadn't expected. We opened the door to show them the back because we were living on a farm at the time. You could see the back of the farm through that porch. Did not have a clue that my service dog had licked the oil dripping into this bowl, and until it was time to give her dinner, and all of a sudden she didn't come, and she was zonked out, and it was totally our fault, and we felt horrible.
Oh
Be
gosh, yeah.
very careful with your animals. She was fine, but like with people, it had to get through her system. And I'm thinking with butter, dogs and cats are going to be extremely attracted to that. Why she wanted oil, I have no idea, but butter, she'd be there in a heartbeat to get. So please be careful with your products from all of your animals, cats, dogs, whatever you have in the house. I just wanted to reinforce that one. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important. And, I have a question for you, Ellen, but I know one of the questions that I had initially was, like I said, do I like eat this butter? Do I bake it in my brownies? Like, what do I do with it? And I'm still figuring that out. And for me, I've learned that like if I take like half a teaspoon or, a teaspoon or whatever it is of the actual butter and I just eat it and like put some yogurt, something
Mm,
or like some toast, like I'm just consuming it like I would butter. And sometimes that's on a food, and sometimes that's, just sort of like straight, which seems weird to just like eat butter. And it
yeah,
has an odd taste because it has the infused product in there.
right.
But like you kind of start getting used to it. But
I think it's really important with the way you're doing it and the way I'm doing it that we measure each time we create it. So the next time you make your butter or I make my oil, I'm using the exact same measurements. So I will know how it's going to react in my body. And same thing with butter. You want to make sure you're measuring out how much of that is the right dose for you. And then whether you put it mixed with something else or on a piece of toast, whatever, but it's
mm,
just that dose. But you also want to know that the butter you've made this time is going to be like the butter you made last time. Same
right. And
measurement
like
of
they've been
product,
different. They've been different for me. Like
Yeah,
this one, yeah. So I mean, it's a little bit of like figure it out and find what works for you.
right, right.
So the question I have for you, Ellen, is you're fortunate enough to be able to be like growing this at home. Do you have any advice or suggestions on like how does one even like get started like growing that at home? Like, do you have a greenhouse? Like, how does that even work?
Yeah, it just kind of grew in time. We turned our basement and when we lived on the farm, made two little rooms, one for the initial stage when you clone a plant and root it, and then you have two segments where the lights are on 12 hours during the day, 12 hours off at night. When you want to then encourage the plant to go into budding, you move it into the other room where it's on 17 hours for the day, and that activates whatever size plant you want it to be, activates it into turning into product. So you kind of play with. We just kind of learned through the years of how to do this. It's a lot of trial and error. Eventually, on the farm, we built a greenhouse because the rules in Rhode Island, it has to be attached to the house. So we couldn't put it in a greenhouse away from the home at that time. So we had a basement door that walked out into a greenhouse attached to the house, and we did it that way. But now you're going to find with say loosen up things and make recreational available that people here, the recreational people, can actually grow 3 plants on their own, and they don't have to register. And I've had to register every plant for all these years of being a medical patient. So it kind of is a little ridiculous that I should have to register and they don't. Anybody can grow now. So we have found across the country less interest in the medical aspect of it and more interest in the recreational aspect. So if you have dispensaries, stick with those places to go because they are the ones that will help you. If you just go to, do you have recreation in Texas? Recreational use of cannabis?
No.
Okay. When that happens, stick with your dispensaries that will educate you. Because when you open up for recreation, they don't give you education. What plant's going to do what? They don't have that information. You go in, you buy your products, you walk out. So hold on and really advocate for those dispensaries that can help you and help educate you and the next person coming along.
Yeah, the big kind of, thing that's going on in Texas is um, the beverages. So the beverage lobbies are, being loud because they want to have the drinks be the only thing available. They want to take away the edibles, they want to take away the tinctures because they're a moneymaker.
And how are you
And
supposed to know how much you're getting in a drink?
right?
That would
So
scare the pants off of me to try, to be honest with
right,
you.
right, right. And it's like you're
Crazy.
buying it at a gas station. So I mean, like the authenticity and the credibility just goes down and down. But the one place in Texas, if anybody is listening from Texas, that has been very clear and following kind of the rules and doing plant and not the synthetic Delta 9 is called Tejas Tonic, like Tejas. And like you can order the canned beverages, and I really enjoy them because each can is like 5 milligrams of THC, which I've learned like I can just drink like half a can and like it's just enough to take the edge off my pain. So I'm finding that microdosing is really helping with me. And then the other product that I like, and again there's no affiliation, is something called Mr. Moxie's, and it's a mint that has like different, like maybe it'll be 0.5 milligrams or 2, or it'll be a combination of CBD. And so like it's another like daytime thing for me to just kind of like get through a bad day or a bad barometric pressure. So again, all of this is shared with a few of my friends that requested, like, how are you doing this? What's your recipe? It's like, figure this out. Like Ellen has and taught me, and I hope that you all can find some relief. Are there any questions before we wrap up? I don't see any in the chat. We've shared a lot of resources. You may be overwhelmed, but Ellen has made herself available to answer questions or help you. And then the resources that we shared. Um, Anybody? Nope.
I think
Well,
we're good.
yep, we've run over. Again, thank you so much, Ellen, for all your
Oh,
expertise and
my
your hard
pleasure.
work and your
Anytime, guys.
compassion. I think it's fantastic that you were the first EDS Empower Hour I did, what, 3 or 4 years ago? And, now we're back here again. And there's
And
been
now I've
like,
gotten older, huh?
I was going to say, we've both gotten older and wiser. And
I don't know if
the
I'm wiser.
I know people are interested because I mean it's like nearly 400 views on the previous recording that we did. So
that's cool. Well, seriously, don't hesitate to reach out. I am more than happy to help, and I hope each one of you, if you try this, whichever one you go for, I hope you will pass it forward to other people trying to get through this condition. Okay.
yeah. All right. Take good care of yourself.
Take
And
care.
thank
Thank
you
you.
again, Ellen. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.